Greetings, Earthlings. I hope you're doing well. This is Jay Delancey, founder of Voter Integrity Project North Carolina, and a proud member of the North Carolina Election Integrity Team. This message is really for North Carolina. You're welcome to watch it if you're not from North Carolina, but it's really about what's going on in North Carolina and where we're going to need your help in this matter. I guess so really anybody could comment on it. Ah, okay. I'm rambling already. All right. What I want to do is talk to you today about some rules that the State Board of Elections is on the cusp of implementing um, that are highly problematic. And we have a comment period that closes Monday night, this coming Monday. Today's date is April 16th, and the comment period ends at midnight on the 21st, which is Monday, Monday night. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and share my desktop and show you what this is all about. Okay, first off, I will be happy to provide you a link, but it's from the State Board of Elections uh, website, sbe.gov, and I've gone straight to it when I probably should have done something different, which would have been to show you how to navigate to this page, but I didn't think of that until right now. So I'm just going to promise that I'll put the link in the page, in the wherever you see this story posted, there'll be a link with it. All right, and so what it gets you to is a set of proposed rules. I call them the observer suppression rules taken at large, or maybe even observer intimidation. The three of them writ large. Part of it involves experience. See, for those of you who don't know me, I've been a poll observer on and off since 2012 and learning how to do this and have gotten pretty good at training poll observers and all that kind of thing. But it's not without lessons learned, and we've had quite a few of them along the way. Not the worst of them being, well, before I even show you that, I'm going to talk to the screen. Okay, back in 2017, we, we had a problem. We had a big problem that for 2012, I was an observer. 2014, yes. And from about then on, I couldn't get any cooperation from the local Republican Party. And in order to become an observer, you have to get appointed by the party observer. So I did train people in other counties to observe, but I couldn't observe in Wake County. Uh, and there were some on and off changes. In 2016, I did get to be a statewide at large because the state party didn't know any better and they appointed me. So I did get some observer rights that year. And in 2017, it was a municipal election, and do a we wanted to deploy a small team of observers that were at large in Wake County. They'd had a new party chair, and Darren Eustace, and Darren was okay with letting me go in. I'd known him, and he trusted me enough to do it at first. And he put me in as an observer, and he put my team in, a team I had trained, because we were going to go in and just ask some real quick questions, do a quick survey, and create a post-election report of what we saw by looking at large numbers. We weren't going to go in and try and disrupt anything or correct any problems. Well, there's one we would have corrected on the spot, but in general, we wanted to know if it was a no notice inspection. Just walk in, say, I'm poll observer, let me come in. And then what we're going to do was check to see two things. One was the partisan makeup of the leadership in the polls, and also to see if they were allowing electioneering material over in the voting ballot marking area, which is, we'd gotten numerous reports in the previous election that they had done that. And when your average voter sees it, they don't do anything. When your average informed voter sees it, they go, oh, thank you for pointing it out. And then they go and get rid of it. So what you had, in effect, was Democrat voting material being left in the ballot marking area, which is illegal. But they were doing it. We caught them in numerous places. So we wanted to do a spot inspection just to see how widespread this problem was. Um, so I trained them, and I was going to send all these observers out. But before I did it, I wanted to go run the gauntlet myself and make sure it was going to work. So I walked into the Kiwanis Park, um, the early voting location in Raleigh at Kiwanis Center. And introduced myself, and she checked her list and saw that I was on the list and let me in. Then she points to some taped off area that's about a 4 or 5 square foot area. Said, "This is where you'll sit, and you can't talk to anybody." I said, "No, no, no." I said, "I'm not sitting anywhere." She looked kind of annoyed, but no, I'm not going to do it. It's against the law for her to make me sit anywhere. And it's like, "You're not going to make me do that." I didn't say that to her, so I'm not sitting there. I just came in to ask you some questions. And she didn't like the fact that I even dared question her. But at that point, so I kind of screwed up in that regard. But anyway, I said, she goes, "Well, what kind of questions?" I said, "Well, for starters, what's your name?" And she got real offended. I said, "My name is Mary." I said, "Do you have a last name?" She goes, "I don't feel comfortable get. I don't like that question." And I said, "You don't like that question? You're really not going to like this question." She goes, "What?" I said, "What party are you affiliated with?" She pointed to the door and got real huffy and said, "You need to step outside while I talk to my leadership. I don't believe I have to answer that question." I went, "Okay." I know she does, but it's public. I said, "It is public information. You just step outside." So I stepped outside and went out there, and I'm waiting. And it wasn't 2 minutes. My phone rang, and who calls me but Darren, the Republican Party chair who had appointed me. And backstory on this: when Darren first appointed me on the list, he handed the list over to Gary Sims, the director of elections. Gary's a hothead, and we have a history. Gary doesn't like me, and well, the feeling, I wish I could say, was mutual, but yeah, Gary is who he is. I've tried to be nice to him, and I've never been mean to him, though I did sue him once. I've never really been mean to him. But anyway, Gary didn't like me, and he pointed to the list and said, "Are you sure?" This is back when Darren appointed it. He goes, "Are you sure you want this guy on your list?" And Darren says, "Why wouldn't I?" And Gary says, "Well, he's a known troublemaker." Okay, so Gary had it out for me, didn't want to see my name on the list. Okay, got it. So now, fast forward to I'm getting kicked out of the precinct after asking 2 questions to the chief judge. Technically, she was a site supervisor, but she played the role of chief judge. So I'm just going to call her chief judge, Mary. So Mary kicks me out. And 2 minutes later, Darren calls and says, "Jay, what is this I'm hearing about you quizzing voters at the polling location?" Now, uh, I didn't quiz any voters. There's no proof, no evidence that I ever quizzed any voters. But that is what the party chair heard about my behavior, and it made him mad. And he called me up and he yelled at me and said, "You need to stand outside and wait. Gary Sims is coming to talk to you, and you need to obey whatever Gary tells you." I'm rolling my eyes now, but Darren is fully bought in that I'm a troublemaker and I shouldn't be there, and I need to obey every word Gary tells me. That's baloney. It's just flat out horse pocky, horse pucky. Anyway, no. I said, "Gary, I will certainly talk with." I mean, I said, "Darren, I'll certainly talk to him. You listen and you obey him." He doubled down, so he's really mad at me. Um, so first off, he heard a lie. I don't know who told the lie. Was it Mary? Mary probably called Gary Sims, her director, because that was her direct report. So she probably called Gary. What did she tell Gary? I don't know. Anyway, Gary more than likely called Angela Hawkins, the Republican um, board member on Wake County, and then Angela probably called Darren. That's probably what happened. Gary may have called he may have short circuited and just gone straight to Darren. I don't know. At any rate, somebody changed. He asked me a question to he's quizzing voters. See the difference? Quizzing voters in the polling place is illegal. I'll show you why in a minute, in a long minute. I'll show you why at the end of this video, but it's illegal. I would never do it. I would never train my observers to do it. Nonetheless, that's what I was being falsely accused of doing. So with that background story, you have to understand why this law was on the books now. Now we start with state law, maybe if I can find it. No, I'm going to start right with the rules. The rules, okay. The first rule the State Board of Elections is proposing is one to challenge the appointment of an observer. challenging the appointment. So they see the list, they see my name on the list and go, I don't want that guy here. So they challenge my appointment. And who do they don't challenge me. They challenge, it says here under this rule, the following of challenges: the county board of elections by majority vote and documented through a written statement made by any board member may challenge the appointment of any observer appointed to serve the county, and a chief judge of a voting place may challenge the appointment of any observer who is eligible to serve in that voting place. So suppose Gary missed the my name on the list, that one of the chief judges could have seen it and said, "Oh no, we don't want this guy here." And that's all they have to do. They file the challenge. What did I do? Well, let's see. It says the basis of the challenge pursuant to it's North Carolina General Statute 163-45.1 F as in Frank. Now let's go see that. I've got it here somewhere. Let's see. Here we go. Okay, that's J. This is F. F. The County Board of Elections or a chief judge of voting place shall only challenge the appointment of observer pursuant to this section for good cause, which shall include evidence the observer could, can't say it, I can't click right, could impact the conduct of the election. Okay, that is problematic language. What does could impact the conduct of the election? That's okay about behavior. I'm 100% in agreement that if an observer misbehaves, the observer can get booted. But now, thank you, lawmakers. Thank you, Republican supermajority legislature. If I can be accused, if the chief judge or the board of elections says I could impact the conduct of the election, I'm out, or at least I'm in big trouble. Now, okay, I want to go over quickly the things that observers shall not do. And I'm 100% in support and in concurrence with these. And I'm going to take a moment to talk about the Jim Crow South. You know, back in the days before the federal law was implemented, um, I'll start there. Let me tell you a story about the Jim Crow South. Um, Back in the days when Democrats ran the South, that would be from the end of Reconstruction in North Carolina, it was 1898, up until 1965, when the Voting Rights Act passed. Democrats ran the Jim Crow South. And what they would do, if they caught black voters voting, they would they'd make an example out of them. They would teach blacks that it's not safe to be voting, and this is how they maintained control of the South. Um, that changed with the 1965 Voting Rights Act, and I'm going to go to that Voting Rights Act now and show you not the Voting Rights Act, but I'll show you the law as it currently stands, which is a very good law. So what they were doing, what Democrats were doing, was intimidating voters or white poll observers who were in the black precincts trying to protect the rights of black voters. Um, this is nothing in this section. There's a lot of words here. The statute is 18 USC 245, federally protected activities. So I point you straight to this section. Okay, it says, I'm going to skip over and paraphrase part of it, but this is the bottom line. Whoever, whether or not acting under color or law, let me go stop there for a second. So whether I am a dirty cop in Cobb County, Georgia, or in Wake County, North Carolina, or a dirty poll official who's cheating under color of law by force or threat of force, willfully injures, intimidates, or interferes with, or attempts to injure, intimidate, or interfere with. Let's see, any person, because he or she has been in order or in order to intimidate such person, any other person. Let me just cut to it. I'm not reading all that. It says from voting or qualifying to vote, qualifying or campaigning as a candidate for elective office, or qualifying or acting as a poll watcher or any legally authorized election official in any primary or special election. So if the poll employees are working inside of a black precinct and a Democrat Klansman walks in with a baseball bat and wants to run those poll workers out and shut down the polls, they're guilty of a federal law. This in part is what made the South start enfranchising black voters, starting with the Voting Rights Act of 1965. And the Democrat Party lost their grip until they found a way to buy off black voters, but I won't go there today. The point is, it's a federal law that you cannot intimidate poll watchers, which is in North Carolina, we call them poll observers, but it's the same offense. That is a violation of federal law. And oh, by the way, the punishment for this, um, number one, the individual who has been discriminated against has private right of action. Here we go. But at the end of the day, the person who did it shall be fined under this title. Shall be fined on this title or imprisoned not more than 1 year or both. And if bodily injury results from the acts committed, it's even worse. The fine on it, I think I saw it, it's $1,000, which used to be a lot of money. But anyway, okay, that's the federal statute giving the observer these rights. You cannot intimidate them. And really, what the elsewhere in the statute, it talks about things they cannot do, which basically it's intimidate a voter or intimidate a poll observer. That's what the federal statute is. They cannot intimidate them or otherwise injure them and that kind of thing. Now, the way that translates under North Carolina law is okay. It says what observers cannot do. There's 5 things. One of them is kind of silly, but I get it, and it's okay because all 5 of these fall into the bucket that's covered under federal law. So, oh, this says what I can do. My bad. My bad. They cannot stop me from doing these things. Um, I'm not going to go there because this is about, I'm getting back to these rules and I want to keep this video fairly short. Okay, they cannot stop me. I mean, the observer shall not do any of the following inside the voting place. 1, I cannot look at or photograph a ballot or otherwise record the image of any voter's marked ballot. 2, I cannot impede the ingress or egress of any voter at the voting place. So I can't be, in my Klan outfit when the Democrat Party on their behalf, what they were doing is they beat you up when you walk out. You're black, they just beat you up. You might have voted or you're coming in, they'll beat you up on the way in. That's how Democrats controlled the South. So, now that's not it. And this law is part of it. The observer cannot do those things. Item 3, the observer cannot inhibit or interfere with election official in the performance of his or her duties. So as a Democrat Klansman, I can't walk into a black polling location and start beating up, start wailing on the poll workers. And also now this is kind of different than all that Democrat stuff. I can't, as an observer, be inside engaging in electioneering. I can go outside, take off my observer badge, and I can electioneer just like anybody else, but I can't do it in there as an observer. And item 5, make or receive phone calls while in the voting place. My problem with our legislature, who did us no favors with this law, said, okay, a chief judge may remove an observer who engages in prohibited behavior under this section. Okay, fair enough. We all agree. I don't want any observer doing those things. But it says, may also remove an observer for good cause, which shall include evidence that observer could impact the conduct of the election. Could impact. Well, Jay Delancey's name on this list, and he could impact the outcome of the election, the conduct. Why? Because 5 years ago, we had a report that he was quizzing voters, unsubstantiated, unadjudicated, or maybe somebody accuse me on social media of that. They take a screenshot of that and say, see, he could do this. You see what's happened? I never had my day in court, yet I'm being reserved. I'm being kicked out as an observer before I even get there. That's what Rule 1 allows them to do, is preemptively get rid of an observer without giving the observer due process and without, no day in court, just saying, we don't like this observer. No, they don't need any reasons. All they need to do is get the board to go along with it, which can be highly partisan. And then you get your virtue signaling Republicans on the board who want to get along with the Democrats, so they will do whatever they say. So we don't like this Rule 1 just for the simple reason that it doesn't afford the observer right to due process, which last time I checked is a constitutional right and may be in violation of 18 USC Code 245, which it talks about impeding an observer. Okay, that's just Rule 1. Now, Rule 2 was the appeal process for removal of the observer, which goes back to Rule 1. I'm being accused under Rule 1. I'm being accused without ever given a chance to fight for it. It's my word against the chief judges, and the chief judge wins 10 times out of 10. So then the appeal process is says, I'm going to cut right to it. See where I've got highlighted? It says, may be appealed only by the chair of the political party or the candidate that appointed the observer. Notice that the observer has no right to appeal. The observer is being kicked out. The observer is being punished, but the observer has no right to appeal the ruling of the board. That's a problem. That's my number one problem right here with the second appeal of removal of an observer. So not only can I be removed preemptively, but the chairman of the board of the county party is the only person who has the right to appeal my appointment. That's a problem. That's why this law should be shot down right there. No violence intended is metaphorically shot down. It's not a law either. It's a rule, but it has the force of law if it's approved. So we need to get as many public comments in against it as we can. Okay, the third one is identification of observers. This is we're supposed to wear a tag, and per the state law, it says every observer serving at a voting place, uh, let's see, must wear, I'm paraphrasing, wear an identification tag to inform voters and election officials of the observer's role in the voting place. This is per the statute. So let me look at that statute real quick. That is indeed what it says. Oops, my bad. That is indeed what it says. However, there's a problem, and leave it to, let's see, where is it? Yeah, it's that what I just read to you is verbatim what the law says. It says the state board may require the observer to wear an identification tag or badge to make voters and election officials aware of the observer's role in the voting place. Now, what is the role? The role is election employee, voter, or poll observer, or maybe assisting another voter. Those are about the four roles. Oh, and poll runner. Those are about the five roles that are allowed in the polling place. Now, an observer isn't a Democrat observer or a Republican observer. They're a poll observer. However, the way they wrote this rule quibbles over the idea of observer. That's very important, is whether everyone knows whether the poll observer, because it says in here that they had to list the name of the political party. The tag shall read observer name or observer for name. I'm sorry, it says observer for name of party or observer for the name of the candidate who sponsored the observer. So in a primary, if I get sponsored in there. But instead of saying an observer is an observer, observer has rules as a non-partisan observer, there's certain behavior they cannot do. What identifying the party does is it gives the poll workers a chance to figure out whether, okay, he's one of us or not. Observer is an observer. But the State Board of Elections wants to force this into observing and naming the party. Now, I will give you another war story. I don't have the incident report in front of me, but I could tell you, I know it happened and I could prove it if need be, prove it in court because we do have it. I just don't have it at my disposal. It was 2022. It was I think it was election day. It might have been early voting, but I'm pretty sure it was election day because it happened at the last minute. It was noisy. But at any rate, what had happened was in Buncombe County, the election director had issued a rule where, remember that story I told you about the tape on the floor where I was supposed to stand, which is illegal. They're impeding my ability to observe. That's illegal under federal law. But anyway, in Buncombe County in 2022, they put a chained up area and put the observers in there and said you can't leave that area. So they had them caged like prisoners or animals or something, and then had a sign above it saying Republican poll observers. So what happened? People would look at them with scorn, or they whisper so the poll observers couldn't hear them. We don't want the observer to hear this. They're especially Republican. If it were Democrat poll observer, they might have been different. But at any rate, one guy came in and went totally unhinged, started screaming at them and accusing them of all sorts of stuff they weren't doing. And as a result of that, finally, an adult in the room said, "Oh, hey, voter, you need to leave. You can't do that. You got to stop." But it happened, and the reason it happened, and it shook the poll observers getting yelled at like that, and they were afraid for their lives. They were afraid the guy was going to start beating them up or something. And so leave it to the Board of Elections. This is their general operating procedure. Before I go back to this page one last time, I'm going to talk to you. As a rule, when our highly partisan and corrupt North Carolina State Board of Elections, in my opinion, when they, in any rule or law they advocate for, they're looking for either secrecy or something that will thwart the ability to detect fraud. Or in a third case, they will find ways to make it to where the fraud, or in that spirit, where the fraud is hard to separate from the lawful voters. And we'll have to save that for another podcast one day. But this is as a general rule. And in this case, see, having trained observers in the polling location operating freely could impede the ability of observers and good guys to detect and report on fraudulent behavior in the polling location. Something I failed to mention, the appeals process. It's a very lengthy process. On election day, it could result in that precinct having no observer for a couple of hours. And during early voting, it takes that observer out for several days while the appeal is going forward. Now, you think about it. I mean, in addition to everything else, if the poll observer, I should show you that. I should show you that because this might be something you want to complain about. If I mean, I oppose the idea of appealing to the party and not to the individual, letting the individual do the appeal. But even so, the appeal process, which is what's discussed in the second rule, the appeal of removal, that process itself is very jobby uh, because it says if the observer is removed from early voting, the appeal shall be filed within one day. And if it's a voting site, the appeal should be filed within 2 hours. So they have to move quickly. Meanwhile, the precinct is sitting empty. That observer is not there. So they create this time instead of appealing it right there on the spot with the other two with the other two judges, and maybe requiring a unanimous decision to get all three of them out. No, no, they just said, "Oh, you're out," and then the appeal takes a while, and they have time to if the observer move. Let's see, if the observer shall decide the appeal as expeditiously as possible, but no later than 2 days after the appeal. And this says, and that's on election day, it says no later than 4 hours after the appeal is received. So the corrupt election officials can keep the observer out of that precinct for 4 hours on election day. Think about that. So every benefit goes to the election officials just ignoring the fact that they may be the problem, which is, I would argue, in many cases, they are the problem. And then if an observer starts pointing out what they're doing, they get booted. And then it becomes a big kerfuffle. Meanwhile, the polling site is empty. And all of that is in violation of federal statute. But of course, it costs time and money to get into federal court. We'll see about that. We're going to see if we can streamline that process. So the bottom line is, I need you to go to the site. I will give you the link below. It's a State Board of Elections website, and I may have trouble backing out to find it. I'll try it. I'll do it in a new window. So if I get frustrated, um, I'm going to do something here and just search. Well, let's see this site. Okay. Public comments on rule changes. Okay, you do that, and it comes straight up to public this link, which is good. It is. I think that's the link we needed. Okay, they list all the rules. Oh gosh, they don't make it easy. Comment period, proposed rule. Okay, here we go. For observers, regarding observers, election protests, recounts. That's probably it. We'll see. This makes it jobby to find it this way. Comment period runs through April 21st. This is it. So it's down here. That's another way to get to it. Or you can just let me send you the link. I'll have it in the bottom of this podcast. All right. That's it. I have one last thing to say for it. Two things, actually. April 21st is the deadline. So please respond, act quickly, because April 21st is the deadline. That's Monday, midnight. And lastly, I have to shamelessly promote my book, recently published and revised after the 2024 election, that has a new preface involving the election of Trump. And also, I'm happy to report that it has, see if this version of it does. I've got an index in it too. So those of you who are creeps and you know who you are, you can look them up. You can look up your name in here. Let's just for fun. Let's see if LMNOP Sims. Yeah, he's listed on page 27, 164, 168, and 211. So we have fun. You can, if you know you're a guilty party, you should buy the book, if for no other reason, just to see what I said about you, and yeah, see if you want to drag me into court or something. Because I said something about you don't like. At any rate, here's the way the book works. If you go to Amazon, the name of the book is Aliens Among Us, but don't, please don't search Aliens Among Us on Amazon, because if you do, what you'll get is, see, I'm a lieutenant colonel retired in the Air Force, and what you'll get is 50,000 books on space aliens. This is about voting. So what you're better off doing is go to Amazon and search on my name, type that in there, and it comes right up. And now, what you'll find if you order on Amazon, it's kind of a dirty trick I played on you. It's $25 for the book. And why is that dirty? Because it used to be 20. When I revised it, I raised the price. But even better, um, if you book me for an event and guarantee sales of at least 10 books, I will be happy to speak at your event and cover my travel too. I'll be happy to speak at your event, and I'll sell some books too. And I'll offer anyone who buys them that night will get a 20% discount on the book. So they get it for the old price of $20. But I'll tell you, the old one isn't as good as the new one because it's got more relevant information about the 2024 election in it. So anyway, just pitch that to go buy the new one or to invite me to your site. That's you can find me at voterintegrityproject.com. Click the contact me button, and you should be able to reach me that way. You can put in a request that way, and I'll make sure it works. But anyway, that's about all I got. More importantly than all that is the 21st of April this month You have to get that in. And I'll close with a principle in the Bible. A good Christian would have the scripture title, but it's written twice in Proverbs that God hates unjust scales. And that means the balances have to be fair in justice and also in elections. So we need poll observers from all parties, really, but certainly from the two major parties. We need poll observers to be there to make sure that things are being that the election is being conducted in an open and honest way. And that's why this cares about me, and I hope about you too. So with all that, I got to go. It's been longer than I expected, but I hope you enjoyed it. God bless. Jay Delancey signing off.